Well, good evening. I'd like to go ahead and call this meeting to order. And for all those who can, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. So, Mr. Bishop, will you lead us in the pledge?
Recording in progress.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great. Thank you. Brittany, roll call.
Chair Joseph Dibber.
Here.
Robert Bishop.
Here.
Mark Stroud.
Here.
John Boyle.
Present.
Dan Esco.
He's
On
on.
Zoom.
Yep, on Zoom.
And Town Manager Thomas Hutchison.
Here. Great, thank you. Public address to the board. This is a time when the public may address the board on any item listed on the meeting agenda or on any issue or matter of the town. If you intend on addressing the board at this time, we ask that you do the following. Please identify yourself by name, address, or the company or institution you represent. The public address to the board segment will last no longer than 30 minutes. Please make your comments concise and try not to repeat statements made by others. Please address your comments to the board chair. Discussion or debate on any issue may not take place at this time. The chair or the designee may answer questions on procedural matters. Please be cordial and respectful of others. If anyone wishes to be recognized when the board discusses an agenda item, please make the request at this time. The board chair may grant this request. Again, address comments to the board chair and be concise. We are meeting in person, making this meeting available via Zoom for the convenience of the public. Since we're meeting in person, we will not be responsible for any technical difficulties. So if you'd like to be sure of participating, please try to attend in person. Anyone wishing to address the board this evening? Okay, seeing none in the room. On Zoom, any hands up? I don't see any. Okay. Thank you. Moving to appointment ratification. Number 5, appointment ratifications. Mr. Hutchinson.
You'll note in your packets, there is a memorandum from Chief Sept requesting that the select board appoint Chelsea Eichstedt to full-time patrolman effective September 19th, 2022. Mr. Eichstedt will be attending the Municipal Police Training Council Academy beginning on October 18th, 2022 as part of the 65th Recruit Officer course for Western Massachusetts. So I'm pleased to forward to you that recommendation.
Great, thank you. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to appoint Chelsea Eichstedt to full-time patrol effective September 19th, 2022.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion?
Yeah.
Mr. Boyle.
Yeah. Is she a part-time officer now?
So Mr. Wood, you may remember with the police reform bill, we don't have part-time officers, we can't hire them part-time, so Chelsea is coming in brand new.
Okay.
She will be attending the full-time academy.
Yep. Just one follow-up question.
Sure.
Did we lose somebody?
No, this was the position we hired in February, it just takes us this long to get someone into the academy.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Is Chelsea here? Hey, congratulations, Chelsea. Do you have, you guys want to do a photo op?
Sure.
You want to do a photo op, Chief?
License and registration.
Yeah. Come on up, Chelsea, we're going to do a photo. You have anybody else here with you? Family or family and friends? Come on up. We always do a photo op. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I live in Great Barrington.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
great, excellent.
Chelsea has her master's degree.
Fantastic.
Smarty pants.
Great, well, I'm going to have her talk about herself after this, so, yeah. Come on up, folks, just gather up. Yeah. That's okay, yeah, that's okay, all good. Gather around.
Let's get in the room.
Yep. Oh, Tom, squeeze in here. I'll be back there. Okay, we'll look at Alyssa in the back there. And then Alyssa in the white shirt. All good? Good? Excellent. Excellent. Well, Chelsea, just take like 2 minutes and tell us a little bit about yourself so the community gets to know who you are and looking forward to working with you.
Take 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. So I got my master's degree at Northeastern. I got hired in February. It's been a long process getting into the academy. I don't know what else. I'm really excited to start and just thank you for this opportunity.
Fantastic. Any comments, Chief?
Well, we're just really excited to finally get Chelsea here. As she said, we hired her in February. She was waitlisted for the Western Mass Academy that started in June, and we didn't think she was going to get to start until January, but they opened a class simultaneously as the other one, so she gets to start a few months earlier than we anticipated, which is always great news. And her first day is next Monday. She's going to start working on policies and IMC, which is our computer system, and different passwords, and just some administrative boring stuff. But nonetheless, we're excited to have her.
Awesome. Congratulations and welcome aboard. Glad to have you. Mrs. Troy, you have a motion to move another item off the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move that we move latest number 9, take number 9 next.
The discussion of police detail fund?
Yes, sir.
Is there a second?
Yes.
Okay, motion is second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. We'll move to number 9. Ms. Hutchinson.
Yes, I think you got some numbers from us on that, and all that demonstrating the need. And if we do end up having a special town meeting soon, which we may be having, I would be pleased to include that as an article on the warrant. Because the select board has, of course, previously indicated their support for additional funds in that account.
Okay. So this will, so that warrant article on the special town meeting will then adjust the budget up by, or adjust that expense line up by 5,000? Is it?
Well, because we could not find the any record of the previous 5,000 that was requested, the latest indication that I had for the board was of a total $10,000 rise from the $15,000 level, which it is at currently.
Okay. Chief, any comments?
I just appreciate everybody working so hard to try to get this taken care of. It's difficult, sorry, get out of your way. It's difficult because we just don't know when we're going to get paid. Most weeks we get paid, but we don't always know. We have to ask on Monday. You know, and the balance is, you know, around $2,000 in the account right now. So if we have 10,000, we don't really see that. And, you know, there's a lot more details coming in right now with paving that we didn't expect. So, you know, as you can see, I have a young group of folks that are trying to work and make extra money for their families. So it's important that we get paid on time and that they know when to expect that money. Because right now it's, every Monday are we going to get paid this week? We don't know, and just, you know, it's not okay. So we appreciate all the hard work that everyone's put into that for us.
So the intention is that increase will help with the mechanics, right, of operationalizing the payment as details are performed, and officers get paid that same pay week?
Yeah, the funds will be available without having to wait for the vendors to pay the town.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
No, I think it's great. Any other motion, or we get on?
I think it's just an update,
Okay.
and then we'll take it up on the special town meeting. Sandra, yes.
I just want to clarify that we're not increasing the expenditures, we're increasing the funds, so therefore the cash,
Right.
in order for it to be able to be used for payment.
Yep, great clarification.
It's a one-time expense. We're considering the source, and we believe at this point that the stabilization fund is the appropriate source for that.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that update. No further questions from the board? Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next is, I have a motion to open as a licensing board.
Second.
Motion second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. And, I'm sorry, Brittany, do you need roll call vote since Mr. Esco is on Zoom as we go through tonight?
I think there's another one.
Okay, got a majority here. American Legion's alteration of premise application for alcohol license. Mr. Hutchinson.
I'll turn this over to my executive assistant, Alyssa Machina, as she runs the licensing arm of the town.
So as you remember the last meeting, there was a little confusion with this application. Dan, who is the new manager of record, he was approved for that for the ABCC. We went through the application. I kind of used what we did for the VFW. We kind of learned going by what happened with them. So I believe this application is good to go. We decided just to do the pavilion area, no other areas, because you can't really, a field, they don't find that acceptable. It needs to be kind of enclosed. There's going to be a roped off area in which everyone can have the beverages. And Dan is here if you have any questions.
Okay, hi Dan.
I do.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Oh, need a if I can have a motion to approve, then we'll get into discussion.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. And next one is the American Legion's amended entertainment license.
So yes, this is just the same thing. So they don't have to come get one-day entertainment licenses if they have bands out of the pavilion area. This is so, as long as the entertainment ceases at 10 p.m., as he's noted, it'll be good to have entertainment without coming up to us every time.
Okay. Got a motion to approve?
So moved.
For a second?
Second.
Okay, open it for any discussion. I have one question.
I have a question too.
Go ahead, Dan.
Just the proposed 8 hours of entertainment don't seem completely clear. It's just 1 p.m. inside. I don't know what that is. Is that a start time, end time? 10 p.m. outside, that looks like an end time.
Yeah. I think the inside, I think, Dan, you're talking about 1 o'clock at night, right?
10 o'clock.
No, inside.
Inside is 1 o'clock.
Yeah, but I think it should be 1 a.m.
We
Yeah,
close
1
it.
p.m.
We close it down at 12.
No.
inside.
Yeah, but the application says 1 p.m.
Should be AM, correct? Yeah, it should be 1 AM.
Can we just make that correction, or the motion?
So
I
hours,
I see above that there's the hours of operation for the alcohol license.
So those
See
are
that.
just the hours that are stated on their alcohol license, and that's just a question that we ask on an entertainment license.
Yeah.
right, so the hours of
Right.
entertainment, so to Dan's point, the hours of entertainment start at what time inside to what time inside, so open and close, right, or whatever those times are.
Right.
And then from what time can it start on the outside? And we know it closes at 10 p.m.
I think, is it generally noon at the earliest
Noon,
outside?
down.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, we'll just make that
Okay.
edit. And then if we can have a motion as amended.
Sure.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Dan, is that your only question? You had the same question I did.
That was my only question, but go ahead.
No, that was the same one I had, same one.
Got it.
So we have a motion as a, okay.
Mr. Lilly, just real quick, just be aware of the concerns with the neighbors that were here also. Just keep that in mind.
Right.
And that's it. That's all.
Okay,
And just to note that if anyone does have any complaints, we do these licenses annually, and we're always glad to, hear if there are any improvements that we can make in any of the items on the license.
great, thank you, Hutchinson. All right, so we have a motion as amended, which clarifies the hours of entertainment from open to close, both on inside and outside. We have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions?
Aye.
Or Objections, abstentions, motion carries. Thank you, Dan. And thank you for working through that with Alyssa and the group.
Thank you very much.
Motion to close as licensing.
So moved.
Is there a second? Is there a second on closing? Motion, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Next is a discussion on the CBRSD, discussion on Old Kona track. Oh, where did Alyssa go? She's gonna pull up the slide. So, Ms. Leslie Blake Davis and Mr. Rich Peters, Mr. Greg Bueno, come on down. Feel free to grab seats, just come on down so the microphones can pick up the discussion. You don't necessarily just need to stand for the whole thing, so that'll be most comfortable with. And then once Alyssa gets here, we'll get the slide deck up. And,
I'm sorry.
that's okay. All right, so thank you for coming tonight. So that's one. And just for the audience at home, is that as we all know that the new school, the debt authorization for that was approved by the 7 towns. I don't know how many years ago now. 3 years ago? How many years ago? 4 years ago. And how time flies. And through that building process, roughly 70 plus or minus $1 million was authorized, and the current spend is plus or minus 68 million. So with a $2 million debt authorization balance, if you will. And the school district has asked the 7 towns for authorization to expand the scope to include reconstruction of the Wacona track. So I'll hand that over to you, Leslie. And Rich can walk us through this.
All right, thank you. So my name is Leslie Blake Davis. I'm the superintendent for Central Berkshire. I'm here with Mr. Rich Peters. He's on our school committee. He's one of the chairs of the Wacona Building Project Committee. I want to mention Mr. Tom Callahan, who is also a chair of the Wacona Building Project Committee, and Mr. Greg Bueno, who is our Director of Finance and Operations. As you know, we are in the process of just, at this point, just wrapping up the Wacona Building Project. There's a brand new building. It's a beautiful building. We're proud of the fact that at this point we did end up about $2 million ahead of where we thought we would be. And we do have an aging track. So what I'm going to try to do is give you a little bit of background and history. And thank you to Mr. Diver for sending me some questions ahead of time. I'll try to address those questions. Mr. Peters will walk through some of the slides, and then Mr. Bueno will walk you through some of the financial components. And then when we're done, please feel free to ask questions, because I'm sure I know you probably do have questions, and that's why we're here. One of the things that Mr. Bueno and I really value around our relationships with the towns is that we want to be very direct with you, and we want to be very transparent. And part of the reason we're coming here tonight is because we can't really ignore the fact that the track is not in great shape. And I do understand, we didn't really anticipate that we would be $2 million ahead of where we are right now, which is really good news. So the design team, the construction company, they've done well by us. We're proud of that fact. I have had questions about why the tracks was not included in the original scope. And I think while I wasn't on that original committee, what I will tell you is the priority at that time was the school building itself. We did not know at that time that we would be in this position where we would be $2 million ahead of where we thought we would be. So our intention was to make sure originally with this new building that we really wanted to lessen the impact to the towns as much as possible. So that's really probably why the track wasn't included at the time. I know there was discussion around the track. Right now, we're going to give you a little bit of information about the condition that the track is in right now. The track itself is about 30 years old. It was first constructed in 1980. It was resurfaced several times, the last being about 20 years ago. It is generally recommended that you resurface a track every 3 to 8 years. What we wanted to try to do, I think my intention and our intention in proposing this now is to make sure that, so right now, we do still have resources on site. We have our design team on site. When I say on site, they may not physically be on site. They're still part of the project. They are still resources that are available to us. We can benefit from their expertise. They've done well by us. So we do trust them around giving us information around what would be the best design, what would be the best company to go with, and that, information such as that. If we were to come and do this in 2 years, we would not have that advantage. So it's an advantage to looking at this right now. I also believe that, whether or not this goes through and whether or not this passes, if we didn't bring this to you right now, you would be looking at us in 2 years and saying, why didn't you let us know? Why didn't you bring this to us when you still have those resources available and you still have those resources on site? I'm trying to think if there are any other questions that Mr. Dibber sent me that I may not have addressed. Mr. Dibber, are there any other? I know I've tried to.
Yeah, I think the other one is around maintenance, because it doesn't seem like it was resurfaced every 3 to 5 years based on the standard, so.
Right.
How is the school committee going to fund that?
Right.
Resurfacing plan?
So it has been, it's a 30-year-old track. It was a donation. So we really, I think it was resurfaced. Was it maintained to the level that I think we would like it to have been? Maybe not necessarily. I think what happens is when you're budgeting and you're looking at direct services to students, such as a teacher, usually that's what takes precedent. We do understand, though, that if this track, if a reconstruction of a new track does go through, that we do have to have a maintenance plan. We don't have a very specific plan yet, because we don't want to create a plan without ensuring that we have the support of all of our towns. I think that I do think that tracks themselves probably have a shelf life. I think 30 years, even if we had resurfaced it more frequently, I think we would be looking at some considerable maintenance. What we're looking at, the other reason we're bringing this to you right now, is that we're not quite sure how many more seasons we're going to get. We're hoping potentially for maybe 1, maybe 2. If we don't get a second season, what would happen is we would be taking our students and we would need to bring them to another track facility in the county. That in itself would be a cost to us. The other piece that, as a superintendent, that I always consider is safety. There's a safety component when it comes to, when you have your athletes and they're wearing spikes, and I'm not a track expert, but I do know it's been brought to my attention that the condition that the track is in, maybe not right now, but maybe in a season or 2, it's starting to deteriorate. And it's starting to deteriorate to the point where we would start getting feedback from officials, other athletic directors, coaches, that they might have concerns about their students.
Recording in progress.
Running on this track. So like I said, again, in the interest of being completely transparent, very, very direct with you, this is really where we are. Why now? Because we are in the process of wrapping this up. We are ahead of where we thought we would be, and we do have some resources right now that are available to us. So I'm going to turn the next couple of slides to Mr. Peters. He's going to really give you more information on the condition of the track and the concerning components of that.
So, thanks. I'm Rich Peters. I'm actually a Hinsdale resident, but I'm on the school committee and school building committee. And we did have Joe was nice enough to attend our 7-town advisory meeting, and we actually took folks up and took a tour of the track. And the concerns are, one of the major concerns that you see here, there's an awful lot of cracks in the pavement up there. And that's concerning for a number of reasons that I'll get to in a few minutes. But go to the next slide, please. Then the other defect that's out there is you see the parts of the track that are lighter in color. What that is that's actually bare pavement. So there's a rubberized coating that's on the track, and it's worn down to the bare pavement. And that's just a picture of one example. Quite frankly, if you walk the track, you'll see a lot of those open spaces. So the challenge is you could, if you had 1 or 2 of these open spaces, you could go through and pull it down and cut that out and put a patch in, and then just go around the track doing patches all over the track. Because what happens is, and this is where the folks who do the resurfacing, they would get a difference of adhesion between the asphalt and the rubberized coating. So what would end up happening is we have bare asphalt, they wouldn't get good adhesion on the rubber coating, and they won't guarantee it or even stand behind it. And in fact, they don't recommend doing it when they have that. What they recommend is if you wanted to, you could patch every single one of those spots. But if you walk that track, you're going to be patching, and you can see on the left-hand picture, you know, every 2 feet you're going to be putting another patch in, right? So you're really patching, you know, half the track at this point, which may or may not be cost effective, but it really becomes kind of silly to do something like that. And then, again, they also said if they patch it, they wouldn't stand behind it. Their recommendation is to roll the whole thing up. And the reason they talked about that, what they said was you could, if you didn't patch it, you could scrape it to get consistent adhesion. You could take you can scrape off an inch of the asphalt. And basically you go in there with a grinder, scrape off an inch of the asphalt and then you'd have consistent adhesion. And that goes back to the other challenge with the track, and that's the cracks. And the problem is if they go on the track with a piece of equipment to scrape it, they're basically not, then they're saying, hey, we're not going to guarantee the track because we're going to be breaking through the pavement. And, you know, there'll be high spots, low spots. They can't guarantee they're not going to wreck the track just by going with the equipment. So in a sense, they're saying you need to, because of the cracks and the amount of repair spots, you need to just roll this whole thing up and put the pavement down. And we did do cores on all around the track, cores that went down and to check to make sure, you know, one, the depth of the pavement, because we wanted to see if we could scrape it, because that was, hey, let's scrape it and just resurface it. There is 4 inches of blacktop. There's also, the good news is there's 16 inches of gravel that is below there. So they did a really good job when they built this track. So it's got a really good bed to support another coating of blacktop. We won't have to replace gravel, that sort of thing. So that's a positive. But essentially what the recommendation is, if you go to, I think it's the next slide, the finance, or the next slide is the recommendations, yeah. The recommendation is not to try and do a recoating or to do the 1 inch scrape. And basically because they're not going to stand by any of the work that we do either of those avenues, is to resurface the whole track. Basically to roll up all the pavement and to put down new pavement and a new surface. And that's where the quotes that come in, there weren't multiple quotes, there was one quote, we brought in one company that looked at it, and they're giving us a ballpark estimate. They originally said $650,000, but with the inflation and the fact that they have a real hard time getting labor right now, they said they would be comfortable saying $750,000. You know, we went in the school committee, we went with a contingency up to $900,000. And just to make sure, who knows what's going to happen next year or whatever. But anyways, that's to cover the cost of redoing the track and doing it right in that respect. I will address one question that Joe had mentioned in there, and that are we getting the best price? And the fact that we have our owner's project manager, and it's inside the MSBA program, if this passes on the towns, and we use the funding that we've already earmarked for the school, they have to go through the same bidding process. So there'll be 3 bids, you know, it will be going to the lowest bidder in that respect of a qualified candidate, you know, and it'll go through that process. So it's not like we're just going to pick one person and go with them. It'll have to go through those processes as well. So any questions on the condition of the track and why we're recommending doing the whole thing?
Any questions so far? Mr. Esco, any questions on your side so far?
Well, maybe this could be a question for later, but I'm just curious, if this was approved, when would it get replaced?
The work would start, if it's approved, right now, because the school committee had the vote, we've got 60 days till October 24th, we'll find out whether we're go or no go by October 24th. The work hopefully would start in the spring, probably right after track, but it should be done before the next school year. It's a 3-month project. So that would mean if, you know, as far as we know, we're going to have track next year, so we wouldn't miss a season if we get that done. We'll have a new track for the following year. And I will say that this came up in the Sept Advisory meeting. There was an ex-track official that attended, he's one of the town officials, he attended the meeting. And his recommendation, what he said was that, as we were walking up the track, and I'm not a track expert, and he said, hey, I used to be an official for the track for Western Mass. And, I said, gee, that's great, because I'm not an expert. When you look at it, give me your feelings on this, I said, you don't have to speak to the Sept Town Advisory if you don't want to, but let me know whether we're, right in doing this or not. And basically, when he came back, on the way back, he said to me that, we're pretty much done. And when he actually opened up and said to the Sept Town Advisory Committee at the time that if he was an official, he said there's 2 or 3 people that come. He said, he would probably issue a warning for next season. Say, okay, you need to take care of this. And if you didn't take care of it, the next year they would probably pull the plug on them and you allow them to have meets there. And he's the one who brought up the liability issue, which we hadn't even thought about, with microspikes hitting the pavement, especially on something like the hurdles. They slide, somebody gets injured, they're from another town, maybe there's some superstar, you might be under an issue. So that kind of put a different spin on the whole project, but quite frankly, that also was, probably not likely to happen, but hey, it's out there, so. Wanted to bring that up because it was brought up in that from some of these.
That was a very helpful part of that conversation.
Yeah, it was.
It changed the perception and dialogue quite quickly, so.
This is good.
Mr. Hutchinson?
Yes, I get, with a $750,000 quote, a 10% contingency would raise that to $825,000, a 15% contingency would raise it over $860,000, so I get the $900,000 ask. I'm wondering about funding the owner's project manager. That could potentially be 8 to 10% of the project cost.
I think it's in there. It's not, there isn't a quote for their work. That part of the contract is through the end of MSBA. I don't think there's any additional cost for that.
The contract is with MSBA. You wouldn't be separately contracting for an owner's project manager.
No, they're already in. It's rolled up. We basically voted to expand the project, the scope of the project, and pulled that into the scope of the project, and that is in the owner's project managers.
Then,
work.
is there any reason the owner's project manager for the project would not continue through the track?
They will. They will. Essentially, what you're
So you would not have to go out to bid for the owner's project manager?
No, yeah, they're on board. This is their project. So they're on this project until MSBA closes it, essentially. So, and the closing process won't happen, until we finish this work. At this point. If it gets shut down, then we would probably start finishing up the project, start the closing process. If this track gets shut down, October 24th, we'll probably start the closing process, which takes several years. So it's not like, oh, it's done. It's going to be several years. So the owner's project managers, that owner's team, that Skanska team, is part of the project until the project closes, which is for a couple of years still, for sure. But we voted to pull this into the scope of the project, so it basically becomes part of the project that they signed up to do, and they're on board with it. We don't have to get any other project manager before.
And just one more background question, a little broader, just because it's come up, not directly related to the track, but in terms of funding the whole borrowing, I understand the school has been using bond anticipation notes while figuring out the best financing for the project as a whole, and I'm wondering, Greg, if you can just speak to when that might actually be bonded.
Just a little background. So, like Joe said, that we first went out to bid, got approved for $72 million. 39.5 is funded by the towns, and 32.5 is funded by the MSBA. We did go out for 80% of the bond back in 2019, which was right under $33 million. So we have to go out for bond for the remaining 20% at max if we use every dime. So that's right around $6.5 million. That does not happen until the MSBA closes their audit. So once the last worker is on our premises finishing up, that's when the audit begins. And that takes about 12 to 14 months. So until that happens, we don't know when the audit's going to end. So say if right now, if nothing, if the vote does not get passed and we do not do the track, I'm thinking we have at least another year of a temporary ban. If it does get passed, if the towns do approve this, I want to say at least maybe 2 to 3 more years of temporary bans before we go out for a permanent ban. And I think I'm saying 3 years only because of the timing of when we would have to go out. Right now, they're kind of ending in September, so I think we would have another year of a temporary ban just because of the timing of it.
And you can do more than 5 years of the bans?
Yes. The only thing I will say is that right now we're out, we're under budget about 2 million. So instead of going out for 6.5, we're going to be thinking right around 4.5 if we do nothing. And I do want to stress that, so no money will be going back to the towns, just less money will be assessed by the towns in that second round of the bond. Does that make sense? If you want to go to the next slide.
One more question, finance position. Are there any grant opportunities for this, Greg?
So the fact that it's an MSBA project, if there were any grant opportunities, that would only lead to the MSBA reducing their the reimbursement.
But if we were to close and do it separately, and the reason why I asked that question is because another question on the list is if the estimate holds true, which is $44,000 a year, which would be our assessment for Dalton,
Yes.
for the life of the bond, for the track itself, that's 1.5, 2 roads a year, right? So that's kind of why I'm asking that grant opportunity question to reduce that cost.
We haven't looked into any grant opportunities yet for the track. If this does go down, I would most definitely look into it.
Okay.
But with the timing of this and everything moving so fast, I did not look into any grant opportunities at this moment.
And then in the school committee meeting, it was mentioned that MSBA is interested in possibly funding a portion of this, which is currently typically outside the scope of it. Is there any update on that?
Yeah, what they do is they allot a certain percentage of the project for grounds, and because we expanded the scope, we actually expanded the size of the grounds, which expanded the size of the percentage. So there was a possibility that MSBA would be funding a little bit of this, but when they looked at the numbers, it came up negative. MSBA won't be participating at all in this. When it goes beyond, we're still beyond the percentage that we've already consumed.
Okay.
Mainly because we had to build a baseball field and the other, repair the other fields because of the construction project, we had pretty sizable expenditure.
Any further? Yep.
I just wanted to, one more. No, go forward. Sorry.
It's in, you have the
One more.
path forward.
That one, perfect, thank you. So this is just if we, these are very, these are estimates. So there's a couple, one piece is when I did talk to our bond council, we used a $1 million figure for this project. We're thinking it's going to come around closer to 750, but we did vote for 900. So you have to put that piece into it. This is using a $1 million project. And then the interest rates for the project, we're using a 4.25 right now. Right now, we're hovering right around the 3.5, but we're being conservative with 4.25 at the completion of the project. As you can see, the left side shows if the track is replaced, and then the right-hand side is if the track is not replaced. The difference comes right around, I don't have the number there, but I think it was right around 70,000 overall year. And this is for the, I want to say it's FY47 through. So this would be part of the project that was already approved. So right around 20, after this, about 22 years, 22, 23 years.
Any questions? Mr. Bishop?
Yeah, when you decide on this track, do they look at different surfaces? I'm sure there's different surfaces that will hold up to these pin spikes. They're gonna go with the El Cheapo version, which is going to be ripped up pretty soon, or how do they choose the right surface? Especially with the weather in the Berkshires and stuff.
Yeah, that's actually one of the, that puts us, because of the weather in the Berkshires in the northern climates, that puts you at the lower end of having to resurface soon because of the freeze-thaw cycles that this code goes through. So We haven't picked a surface, but I'm pretty sure the quote is for a surface that's appropriate for this area. And, you know, that's something that, you know, when we get to that
Are we
point.
just gonna take their word for it, or we're gonna have somebody that actually really knows these things?
Yeah, I mean, that's why you do 3 bids, you actually use people who build tracks, right? That's what they do for a living, right? So that's who's gonna quote on this. And they're gonna come with probably their Cadillac version, right? And then you decide what, you know, bits and pieces you're gonna take, you know, on that, what needs to be done. But you know, given the climate we're in, I mean, that's where you have to use something that's appropriate for this climate.
There's no doubt the track has to be replaced, because when I ran track, we had cinders when we ran that. It was nothing like these.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, about the track. Rich, about the track, what was my question on that? Is there any possibility of covering the track during the winter?
I don't know if that needs to be covered. I think probably the most important thing is to protect the track from other traffic, like the ATVs or football games, that sort of thing. We probably should come up with a cover on that side, especially on the bleacher side.
That could be my follow-up question. I mean, the thing that is basically part of the football field.
Yeah.
It's so close, and football players have their cleats and stuff.
They're not, they're supposed to stay off the track,
Yeah.
you know, but I'm sure there's some traffic on the track in that respect. And if
We do this, and there's certainly the inclination to do it.
Yeah.
In fact, as a matter of record, my son was on the track team in 1991 that was going, and they had to play their games, run their tracks at some other location because it was in such disrepair.
Right.
And since then, it's had a couple of updates or recoveries,
Yes.
but that was 30 years ago. It was in tough shape.
Yes, yes. It's been 20 years, almost 20 years since the last time it was resurfaced. And it shows.
Yeah.
I mean, you can
No
see-
question, it's certainly needed. I think there's strong
Yeah.
support for that.
And that's essentially, that's kind of why we're here. One, as Leslie mentioned earlier, you know, we see what's happening with Taconic. They built a new school and they didn't do the track, and then people are coming back, why didn't you do the track when you built a new school? We're kind of in that same boat, right? And as Leslie, you know, articulated, you know, we wanted to just, the building is a priority. We've come in $2 million under budget, hey, let's expand, let's do the track, because we have an opportunity. If we didn't do this, in 2 years from now, as we come back to the track, and say, hey, why didn't you try? Well, that's what we're doing, we're trying to get
Is
you
there
this
any
project.
other potential location for the track? Now, the grounds have changed somewhat.
No, because the fields are pretty well already designated for soccer, lacrosse, baseball. They're pretty well set, which we really got a nice set of fields now, better than we had before for sure. It's in good shape. But no, plus that would mean that would be a much more expensive project because that would mean we'd have to do the gravel, we'd have to set the ground, and everything else.
Okay, yeah, good point.
We're pretty
Just one
much
final question, financial question. There's a lot of concern in the community about this project. There's always concern and comments and discussions about big expenditures. And one of the things that's prominent in the discussion is when the good folks of the seven towns voted 3.5 years ago,
Yeah,
this wasn't included in the vote.
right. That's why we have
So-
a wet town.
Do we have us all together have a legal opinion about the legality of doing this when this was not included originally in the scope of the project?
Great question. Let's turn to Heather for that answer, because I know Heather, you and Tom spent some time with our town council.
Yes.
Because the vote, let me back up just to frame that up a little bit additional, is that the voting method selected by the school committee for this particular item is what's called 16D, which is a town-by-town vote in which any one town can reject the ask and therefore that will kill the project. So it has to be unanimous across the board to approve it. And Heather, what is the town clerk's / legal opinion on our Mr. Bull's question, which...
Yeah, no, absolutely good question, Joe.
Heather, can you
And,
Come on, yeah, come
Can
on
you
up,
see
so,
it? Yeah.
yeah, come on up so the folks at home can hear you too, so,
okay,
yeah, it's okay. Yeah, just right there is fine, and so the mics can pick you up, that's fine, you can sit or whatever you want to do.
So we did reach out to KP Law and Town Council because we had a lot of questions amongst each other, and we definitely wanted to try to figure it out before tonight for all of you. So we did get that response, excuse me, and I will read. So Timothy Zesson did respond, and he said that if the Dalton Select Board wants to offer the residents an opportunity to vote on the incurring of additional debt, a special town meeting must be convened no later than October 24th. And if no meeting is held, it will be implied that Dalton supports the move to incur the additional debt. So kind of what we had talked about right along. I think most of the question was, are we looking at a special town meeting or are we looking at a special election?
Yeah, that would be the question, because that was when the authorization was given its initial approval.
Right.
To a district-wide, one man, one vote type of election.
Yep.
And now we have a total different type of circumstances where it's one vote per town. And one vote can sink it. I just think that open to some kind of legal conjecture. And as I told Mrs. Dyer, I would be concerned if somebody didn't challenge this in court.
Right.
And that's it. I realize you're not a lawyer, so
Absolutely. And I'm
They
literally
just
reading
stated
from
to
the
hear
email
myself talk,
from
that's
town
all.
council. No, I get it. We had a lot of questions too, and we weren't sure. I mean, there was one point where we thought probably both would have to take place, a special town meeting and a special town election. But hot off the press on Friday, according to our attorneys,
Yeah.
it's a special town meeting. It would have to happen prior to October 24th, and it would have one town veto power, like we discussed.
And most likely that'd be a 2/3 vote required.
So we think so because it's an override. We briefly spoke about that today. We haven't gotten confirmation on that, but certainly we can reach out again tomorrow.
And that's even an override, even though we already authorized the 72 million, right? So we're not going above the 72 million, so it's not new debt, it's just
Right.
authorizing the scope expansion
Yeah.
to
they're
add
probably
something that
still gonna-
was not included in that debt authorization. if you will.
Exactly.
So the scope drives that.
Yes, yeah.
So if there's an override involved, then we have to have a town-wide election? Isn't how override votes are acquired?
This is not an override because it doesn't add to the amount that was originally authorized.
Mhm.
It's a change within what was already authorized.
Yeah.
And it was not immediately or completely clear from the communication from the school board that this was a 16D proposal. So this does depend on it being a 16D proposal. If so, then it is a town meeting, and it would have to be held on or before October 24th.
Right,
If we wish to do that,
If we-
right,
the board.
Well, if you don't vote to have the special town meeting,
Yep,
it is assumed that the town, it is assumed by law, in law, the town is in favor of the project. So not voting is concurring with going forward.
right. I was just trying to make that point clear. That's the way it was made clear to me.
yeah,
That if the board determines that we don't want to vote for a special town meeting, it means we automatically support this proposal.
Yes,
yes.
It's
And that
a good
would
point
go
to get
through
out
the
there
other
for everybody that's
systems.
watching on television, in the audience, and even myself. It's kind of like a negative proving a positive. Kind of hokey, but that's the law, I was told.
Silence.
Massachusetts general law.
Yeah, yeah.
Guy slammed the law down right in front of me and said, there it is.
Mhm.
Well, thank you for that. Any questions for Heather on that explanation from Tim? Thank you for that.
Yeah,
I want to pause because I open up to public questions on different agenda items, but for this one specifically, I wanted the presentation to go and then come back and open up for anybody in the audience or anybody on Zoom land that has any questions based upon the presentation material. Anyone? Bill, Mr. Bushing.
Bill Brusing, he said, I'm going to change, kind of take one hat off for a moment. First question is that you, as you, well, maybe you don't know, I have a rather lengthy, service in public works with highways. So I kind of know what a road does. You're telling me that you have 4 inches of pavement there. and they can't manage to expose a piece of pavement that gives them the same surface coating?
They said if they scrape, went in with the equipment and scrape an inch off, they would be wary of the pavement below that with the cracks, that the equipment would cause the pavement to crack even more and be uneven, and that they wouldn't stand behind. That was what they told me.
So they didn't use equipment when they installed this thing, they didn't use equipment with equivalent weight of what they're gonna use to plane the pavement. Is that kind of what we're hearing? The reason I'm taking this in the direction that it's going is I would hate to have, be getting upcharged for things that are not needed. That's my concern. Generally, and our town manager may be able to enlighten us a little bit. We just did about 1.5 miles road down on Dalton Vision Road, and we're planning on having that thing fully paved. And I believe we're somewhere in the vicinity of $300,000 when complete.
Yeah.
But yet, this track is 1 mile long, and they're talking about $750,000. I'm a little perplexed by this number. And this is also coming from the finance committee share, not the finance committee. So we want to be sure that when we get information and we know what's costing. I'm a little concerned with this. The cracks can be sealed. I'm disturbed primarily by all of this. I'm disturbed by the fact that it has not been maintained. And it seems to be a common theme with these pieces of equipment and these beautiful buildings that we build. We seem to forget to maintain them when we get done building them.
Well, I would say that they do have a lifespan,
I get it.
and I think you probably exceeded that lifespan. That and not maintaining it properly exceeded that lifespan. I'm not an expert on paving, I'm not an expert on equipment years past, it's equipment now. All I can tell you is the quote we received, and it was an estimate. And it's one estimate. It's not the process of going through 3 people estimating, so that may be wild swag for all I know. And until you go out to the bid process, you're not gonna get a real quote. It may come in somewhere reasonable to what you're used to, I don't know, but this is what they told us to put forward, that's what we're putting forward, because I don't know that.
All right, that's fine. I agree. It's not, this isn't a, just to let you know, this isn't a me pecking on the process. It's me
Looking out for
looking out for taxpayers' dollars. And I can see, by looking at Greg's numbers here, we have a $44,000 a year difference if we do or we do not do this track.
Right.
And I can tell you, by the last special town meeting that we attended, I sat up on that podium and I heard from numerous people, not one, not 2, but numerous people, that this town is pretty well tapped out money-wise. So $44,000 in reducing the debt that goes into this new school is a number. It's $1.2 million at the end of the 27 years. That's a number. That's a real number. And if we have the opportunity to skip it at this level and go get ourselves a grant, or we can go and talk to our benefit associations, we can find donations and things of that nature to put this track down. Why would we foist this upon our taxpayers when we've got $19 million worth of roadway repairs alone needed in this town? Not only do we need $19 million of that, but we've also got $900,000 worth of sewer repairs that are coming. And I stated this in 2019. I stated this in front of a very large group that was standing at this room. This is my concern with this project. $44,000 a year is a number. And it's, since I've heard this has disturbed me greatly. And I'm not angry, I'm just a little disturbed that we're hearing the townspeople saying that we don't have money for this, as well with many, many other people. And I'd be surprised if we didn't. Well, you know, some of the towns aren't looking at numbers as large as the town of Dalton. But we've got fixed income, we've got a wide array of people paying taxes in this town. And I get it, I understand we need a track. I don't begrudge track, but is there some other way that we can do this thing without putting it within a project that we're already doing, and a project that we simply, and I agree with Greg in that if we don't get a grant for the track, they're gonna pull it off the MSBA, they're gonna take it off their side. I remember going through that when we were talking about the new school.
Thank you, Mr. Dorsey. and Thank you. Mr. Bishop.
Tom, how much would the $44,000 affect the tax rate?
I can't give you that figure off the top of my head. It's,
I got a feeling it's not gonna be much.
it would not be a great amount. Let me also take this opportunity to say, I'm sorry, I misread town council's email. It was indeed perfectly clear, the voting method which was being proposed by the school district. I'm sorry I implied that it wasn't. Yeah.
Okay.
But I think it'd be about 10 cents, because it takes $400,000 to move the tax rate $1.
So move the tax rate up 10 cents?
Yeah, I agree with that too.
Thank you, Jamie.
Can I change the subject? I have another question regarding,
The track?
yes.
Yes.
So, I know that the school has an override, and it was voted as an override at meeting. And I've come under, I called our auditors about that to see if we needed to also include the $1 million, let's say, for the track as an additional override, but he said we do not. And we do not because that is your debt. It's not our debt, it's your debt. You simply give us an assessment. And the assessment is, the override is at $72 million, which is what the project is for. So we won't have to go get another additional override,
Right.
okay? Because it's not our project, it's their project, they already got it. Now, my other question is, and I didn't do my research first, but, so we're using chapter 71, section 16D to vote this new piece, up or down. And I'm hearing that if one town votes it down, then it's finished. And I don't understand why it's just one town. Does that section D specifically say that? Okay.
Yeah, their options were 16N, which is the popular vote.
Oh, yeah.
Or
Which is what
16
we did before, right?
Right, or 16D, and the school committee selected 16D, which I was very surprised at.
Well, I thought though, that would have been the majority of the towns, but I don't know that for sure.
Well, there's history that it was 4 out of 7 or 5 out of 7
Yeah.
for operations,
Yeah,
but our regional agreement does not state that, nor does state law allow that.
okay.
So state law only allows the popular vote or the town by town in which one town can reject it. That 16D
And then
is,
that
re-
rejects the town, the whole
that
thing.
rejects the whole thing. That
Okay.
16D is really structured for districts with two schools,
Okay,
not 7.
okay, I get it now.
So the school committee presented an opportunity here to replace a track because we're $2 million under, highlighting the risk, but I believe the school committee also added risk in the vote. Because I don't see all 7, but that's a story for a different day. So,
Right.
yeah.
So that's what I was confused about.
Yeah.
And actually, when I talked to our auditor, he wasn't sure either, but,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, any other questions from the room? Mr. Esco, I want to check with you on Zoom. Any other questions from the board?
So, Mr. Dibber,
Mr. Esco?
I tend to, obviously, it's very clear that the track needs to be replaced, and I support that. I tend to agree with Mr. Drossen, his comments. Why borrow as our first resort when other alternative means of financing could be explored? You know, what's the total dollar cost to the town over how many years is this? 27 years?
Right.
What's the total years?
22 years.
And we'd be paying this money back?
22?
22.
22 years, Dan.
Left, yes, right.
22 years?
Yep.
It just, I don't know. I agree with Mr. Drossen's comments, and this I think we should look for alternative sources of financing. I think that's kind of my initial position, but I have an open mind and I'm still listening and digesting what's being said, but yeah, I guess that's it for now.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Esco.
Mr. Joe,
Mr.
I think we can beat this up all night, but it needs to go to the residents and taxpayers. I think we need to have the meeting, let their voices be heard and let them make the decision. I'll make a motion, we have a special town meeting before or on October 24th.
I'll second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Hearing none? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, so we'll move to special town meeting. So, but thank you all for the presentation and discussion. And by the way, Greg, let's talk about shake the trees for ARPA dollars. And that might be a way to reduce some of it. I don't know what the other towns have available for ARPA dollars, but if you want to hang around, we'll be talking about ARPA dollars in the agenda coming up. So, but otherwise, I'll catch up with you later.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all.
Chair, before we leave the topic, it would also be good for the board, if they could, to discuss whether or not they wanted to have it on October 24th, which is a select board meeting night, or the previous Monday, October 17th. We would be, we could sign the election warrant and special town meeting warrant at the next regular select board meeting in 2 weeks. If we waited for a month, we could only have it on the 24th. So if my direction is to prepare an election warrant and special town meeting warrant for the next select board meeting, we could have it either the 17th or the 24th. And it would probably be good to have a draft then anyway. And if it were good, but some direction as to whether the 17th or the 24th would be.
October, what's the first select?
I'm sorry?
The first select board meeting in October, what day is that?
October 11th. It's a Tuesday, the day after Columbus Day.
Okay, then the next one would be the 24th.
Correct.
I think the 17th would be ideal, Joe.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
Okay, is there a second for the second? Okay, motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Esco, are you okay with that, the 17th?
Yes.
Okay.
But, should we designate a time and place? 7 PM at Laguna?
Alyssa, if you can check the schools and we can figure out the place. Oh, Heather?
So I just wanted to make mention, we had discussed the 17th and the 24th earlier today. And Tom, this is something I just realized at the very end of the day. So in order to have that special town meeting on the 17th, we would then be obligated to have an 8-hour voter registration day 10 days prior to that, which is Friday, October 7th, which is currently the day we have them scheduled to move to the bank. So that would definitely have to be moved, because we wouldn't be able to obviously do both of them on the same day in order to comply. It's going to be a squeeze, like we talked about. But Friday, October 7th is my office in the day. But we would have to do voter registration. That would be.
But is there a committee?
I mean,
I didn't realize that until the end of the day. We've kind of been pushing numbers and days, and it just went down to the wire. So, I mean, I would prefer to have it on the 17th over than 24th, just because I think that we're like crazy on the spot. If anything happens, there's no room for error at all.
Yeah.
But just a heads up that.
Heather, isn't there a committee that registers people to vote?
Yes, there's plenty of them. Absolutely. But
I mean,
it's still.
why
messed
can't
up.
they carry out their duties while you're supervising the meeting, moving?
I mean, I guess if you guys think that's realistic, I don't know, because I'm pretty new in the role, and I think that moving the state computers along with everything else in the office.
Yeah.
And losing my assistant in 12 days might be a bit of a challenge. Just something to keep in mind. I don't know how flexible that October 7th date is, if that can be a little
Well,
flexible.
is there anything preventing us from having it, but I just don't want to have it on the 24th, right? Because who knows what can happen, right?
Right.
So is there room that is there room that we can have it on the 20th, or midweek or something? I don't know if there's something in our bylaws that says we have to do this on a Monday.
You don't have to have it on a Monday, just that's kind of typically been the tradition. I shouldn't say that. As far as I know, there isn't anything that
Yeah.
requires us to do that on a Monday.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think
I'll amend my motion to the 19th.
19th?
It's a Wednesday. You good?
19.
Yeah,
A second.
okay, motion is second, all in favor for the 19th of October.
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Esco, you okay? Aye. Okay. Thank you, Heather, for bringing that up. So happy to work through that and figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hutchinson, for that. Is there any other items on that? Ms. Hutchinson, for the new track and that discussion? Okay. All right, is there a motion open as a sewer commission?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sure, point of order, can we
Yes.
lump all these into one motion?
I don't have a
I
concern
don't
with
have a
that.
problem with it. Bob?
There are 4 that are for the same reason, which is a technical error that billed an account that was inactive. So I think all those 4 could be voted at the same time. And then there's one for a different reason that might be goes aside.
So we have abatement certification number 1, 2, 3, and 4, which are all for clerical error.
The first 5 are clerical errors, and then the 6.
Oh, yes, sorry.
Yeah.
First
Okay.
by,
First 5.
then there's a separate one for Central Ave.
Yes.
Yeah. So Ms. Wolf, you want to have a motion?
Sure, I move that we grant the abatement as requested for the following properties. 726, 730 Main Street, 14 and 16 Pioneer Street, 25 Liberty Square, 22 Pioneer Street, and 201 East Housatonic.
Second.
Motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, abstentions?
Aye.
Motion carries. And then the 6th one?
Yes, the circumstances for this were different. This is a house that burned down, and the way the abatements work is you can request abatements on a 6-month schedule. So what they're asking is for the abatement to be from starting on July 1st, I believe. Yeah, so the sewer bill from July 1st through the end of December would be abated for. We can't abate the bill for any time that the house was actually standing, which is January through June 30th. But we can't abate it from July through December 31st.
Okay. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Tom, quick question, where's Kelly right across the street from me, 201 East Housatonic? That's Dudley Press?
This is what I got from the assessors.
Yeah, but what's the address?
It's an inactive account. Oh,
I'm just curious, just nosy, that's all.
Yeah, it should be on here. It's, Courtney McCardle, address is 7 Hall Place in Pittsfield, so it's owned by a non-resident.
Okay.
Is there a motion to close as licensed, as sewer
So
commission?
moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion is second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstention, motion carries. We covered the detail fund earlier, moving to acceptance of second quarter franchise fee, Dalton Community Cable. We have a memo in our packet from John. Dear Chairman Dever, please consider the following request to transfer the franchise fee of $31,626.96 recently received from Charter Communications to the Dalton Community Cable Association. It is our understanding this is a second quarter fee for April, May, and June of 2022. Thank you for your attention on this matter and your continued support of the Dalton Community Cable Association. Can I have a motion?
Sure. I make a motion to transfer the franchise fee of $31,626.96 from Charter Communication to the Dalton Community Cable Association.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion passed.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
we may want to move the item number 12 up one place, because that is also a cable-related
Okay.
item, and Mr. Ostrich is here to speak to it.
Any objections from the board? Hearing none? John, how are you, sir?
This is the discussion of the need for a select board member, select board or designee member of the Dalton Cable Advisory Committee. The way the bylaw is worded, there is a designated seat for either a member of the select board or a designee of the select board. As far as I know, there was no designee, there's no recommendation at this point from Dalton Community Television regarding a designee, and therefore it is an open position. If anyone on the board or who the board would like to designate would like to take that position. And maybe Dalton Cable TV would like to speak to that.
Well, I would like, I don't know how important it is, but it's not the Dalton Cable Advisory Committee. It's the Dalton Community Cable Association. I think I don't want to get confused with the committee that is working or supposed to be working on the license with the spectrum. The bylaws indicate that they're, the select board or its representative has one position on our board. And years ago, maybe John will probably remember, was the lady by the name of Dot Chapman was the first one.
Yes.
And then Tom Murray took over when she passed, and he was also voted on by the board. And Tom is resigning from the board. I think he sent a letter in saying he was no longer interested. So the position is open. So it's either, one of the board members, or if you have a representative that would be interested, you could appoint them. If not, and you would like, we will try to come up with an individual and make a recommendation.
Okay. Preference of the board? Any?
What do you about John search for somebody would be a good idea?
I'm good with that.
You good with that? Is there any help you need from a board member interim-wise until we find a candidate?
Not really. I guess the only thing is being able to get the word out. If you don't have one, get the word out to people that, if someone is interested, you contact either you or the town manager or myself, and we can then make a recommendation.
Okay.
If you do it, I won't do it.
Mr. Bishop?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Bishop's putting his name forward. I'll second that. A motion, Mr. Bishop, for a select board
Sure. I'll second that.
interim. Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Mr. Eska? Congratulations, Bob. Thank you.
I like TV.
And thank you for doing that. Great, all set. Yeah.
You gotta give him his own show, though.
Yeah, behind the board, right?
Boy, it would be a good show.
That's great. Thank you, John. And thank you, Bob. Okay, moving back to number 11. Discussion of Dalton Division Road portion without sewer and water.
Yes, I had a conversation with our DPW superintendent. And since he's taken over the transfer station, I started referring to the department as the Department of Public Works, being a fully functioning DPW. And he estimates that the cost per household would be prohibitive, that there are, along the line of the Dalton sewer would be about 10,
I think it was 11.
11 houses and or buildings, and the estimated cost for the roughly 1 mile of sewer would be about $500,000, which would be, close to $50,000 per household to put that in, and that's, something that would have to be voted by the town, of course. So that's.
Why wouldn't these funds be included in the MPO funds for reconstruction of the Dalton Division Road?
I believe because the project is not connected with the reconstruction of the road. It's a separate project. It would be a town project. It would not be a state project to install new sewer line. Nor would it be a state project to repair town sewer line as it went on, unless it were broken by the contractor, as we know from the previous one.
Are you sure about that? They won't include money in the overall? No?
Well, that project's already been designed. If we were to add something to it, that would be a change in the project.
Yeah, well, you already indicated in a letter from Mr. Cleet Cuss to yourself and myself and other officials that, the time to make the change is right now, before the engineering starts.
Or the time to make the request.
The request. I don't want to miss this opportunity down there to have this funded. I don't think anybody expects the town to fund it, but if it was part of the MPO granted money for a reconstruction project of a street, it might very well be included.
I can look into it further.
Well, I wish you would, though, you talk to Mr. Cuss down at the MPO. Say, can we expand this project? And now would be the time to do it, before the engineering starts, to include connection of.
And again, the engineering has been bid and accepted, so it would be a change in the.
Yep, we have to spend more money, yes. Well, you probably will anyway. Because the whole project is based on a figure of $12 million, 8 years ago. And that figure is probably going to be, what, $15, $16 million now?
Well, that's,
so
yes.
You're going to need more money for engineering, period. So we might have to include something for this.
But
I think it's an opportunity.
We have a cost for the engineering now, as it stands.
Yep.
So this would be a contract amendment.
Great.
So there's the cost of constructing the project, but we would have to pay more, and we would have to get it approved by town meeting to add money to what we've already dedicated for the engineering for the project.
Well, we've done it for other unserved areas of town. I don't see why we wouldn't do it for citizens on Dalton Division Road. But the first step would be for you to get a clear and concise answer from the director of the MPO down there, Mr. Cuss, Cleet Cuss.
Yes.
And then we take it from there. If he says, no, we can't include that funds in there, well, obviously the project would probably be dead. That's just another mechanism for funding it.
Right.
But I don't think we're going to slam the door on it this quick.
Okay.
And there is a great deal of support down there, as Glenn said. There's, I think, 12, 14, and 10 or 11. They did a survey, the people did a survey themselves, and yes, 2 people didn't respond, 1 was against it, but 11 or 12 were definitely interested in having a sewer go through that area.
I'm sure they are.
All right, can we, put on an agenda next time? Meanwhile, you talk to
Yeah.
It's worth the ask. I think it might be unlikely, but it's worth the ask, just to check it out. But, anything else on that item? No? Okay. Moving number 13, ARPA funds update.
The sheet you have in your packet is revised from the sheet that was sent out on Thursday. I have more complete figures. Good news is that for what we planned, we're spending a little bit less from ARPA. The big change is that I have included in this sheet and the one on Thursday for the first time the estimated repairs to the sewer at $760,000, the figure we just got from the sewer system evaluation survey. So that's less than either the DPW director or I anticipated. We think that's really good news. It doesn't mean that that's all that the sewer system needs. It means that these are the repairs that will fix the inflow and infiltration problems that we've had and other structural problems that were identified as they went around and looked at the system. Of course, the system's still old and there are still old pipes in it, and there should be a capital plan to address those systematically going forward. But this is a really good figure to go on for now. The result of all of this is that, figuring 10% of that cost to engineer those changes at $76,000, that means in the revised figures that we have, that we would have about $158,000 left of ARPA to obligate to some other project. So, and that's out of $1.95 million. So we're about 90% obligated at this point. Assuming that the select board agrees that the sewer repair money should come from ARPA as part of our infrastructure plan that was agreed to earlier, and that the engineering is part of that.
So did we already vote in the sewer repairs for 760?
No, it was,
so I guess let me rephrase the question.
Yeah.
Which ARPA lines have we actually voted in?
everything except the sewer repairs and sewer engineering. And there is also an additional vote needed for the water district engineering, which is to have that be counted as revenue replacement.
Yeah, I recall we approved that before, but now it's just different, we need to approve that.
Yeah,
Right.
we need to approve it as revenue replacement money. I don't have a record of that, and we'll need that for eventually to show that that's the category of spending it came in.
Is there a finance committee recommendation on the sewer repairs for ARPA? Have you guys had a chance to take a look at that
We
yet?
haven't had a chance to look at that yet. We will be looking at it this coming Wednesday.
Okay.
As long as I had the numbers in front of me.
Okay.
That was something that wasn't anticipated on my agenda.
Yep.
So we still discuss things, we won't be able to vote on it because it wasn't on the agenda.
Right, okay.
We certainly will discuss it, and as it looks right now, we've changed a little bit with the finance committee. We're planning on trying to meet once a month on the second Wednesday of each month, so we can kind of stay on top of some of these things. It seems like once a month we've been meeting anyway.
Yeah, it just, because the only question that comes to my mind, I didn't think of it until now, so I didn't ask earlier, so apologies on that, is that how much money could we take possibly would be our, finance committee review from source stabilization to this to then, because the opera dollars, you have a little bit of flexibility in how you can apply them, right? So is there dollars somewhere else that we could use for that?
Kind of, not necessarily from the finance committee viewpoint, but from the chair's viewpoint. I would say if we have something more pressing to use that money for, I would suggest doing that and utilizing the sewer stabilization. I don't know how or if a mechanism would be put in place that because we have been with previous administrations and such, they have got us really well trained to put money from our free cash into these stabilization funds. And we have some of the healthiest stabilization funds statewide. So we can use that, that's more or less free borrowing if we continue doing what we do. So maybe split it if there's still a concern about taking too much from that rainy day fund with the 750,000. That would be my suggestion, either the whole thing or part of it.
Yeah.
I've always kind of thought that's what we should do anyway. Well, how much did we, do you remember, Tom or Sandy, how much we put toward sewer stabilization? Isn't that $100,000 we put each year?
Yeah.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it increased the last 2 years,
Yeah.
$100,000.
Yeah, so it is something, we shouldn't drain the account, of course. That would be a very poor practice because that takes away our entire rainy day fund. This would leave pretty close to $250,000 in it if we did the whole amount. It should leave about $250,000 in it, which if anything blows up bigger than that, we're gonna be doing other things anyhow. So if we stay on that path, that $100,000 a year path, we would be in great shape. And then, as you said, the ARPA funds were far more flexible with ARPA funds.
Right.
Because we've got plenty of other things, as I stated earlier, we've got plenty of other things that are pressing. That would be my suggestion.
Yeah, if you happen to have, you move more, you know, we have more, a higher balance in ARPA for another road or two, or something of that nature, right? So, but,
Absolutely.
any other, those are just my, anybody else have another question on the ARPA funds?
Yeah, I do.
Mr. Wall?
2 questions, Tom. Paving, 600,000. I mean, that's not all going to Dalton Division Road, right?
No, that's 5 roads total.
Okay, so what are the other roads? Now that we've defined that we're gonna do them, what are they?
We approved that in March, the first week of March, we approved it. It's Dalton Division,
Yeah.
the half of Washington Mountain,
Uh-huh.
Crane Avenue, John Street, Edward Sunset, and Junior. And then we did the grant out for Orchard Road, we're waiting on here in Orchard, good luck. We did that.
The second question is, just refresh my memory, Tom. What did we give the water district 145,000 for?
Engineering for water system repairs.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Esco, just checking with you on Zoom.
No, I don't have any questions at this time.
Just a note that the original concept was to spend our ARPA funds essentially on infrastructure, because those are the things that are typically most underfunded and most needed in town. And we thought of those as being the things involved in the Department of Public Works.
Yeah.
So, you know, what comes under that umbrella is, you know, certainly fine according to the original way that we were thinking, just in order to maintain consistency.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, I agree with that, yeah. It just kind of jumped out at me, the source stabilization opportunity, and shift some dollars on potentially, so. Yeah,
So money left over, the $158,000, is there any chance of paving some of them roads down in Greenwich Park? I mean, you probably can pave quite a few of them roads with that money.
Well, you know, I know Bud is looking at the street scan data. What that does not include is how much a road is traveled. And so that obviously has something to do with its priority for fixing it. The more traveled roads, which are in bad condition, need to be fixed first. So that's one principle that we're using to do it. And I'll bring up again that this would be a good opportunity to buy new equipment for the transfer station, because we have seen what happens when the old equipment breaks and needs to be replaced. It's not ours, we're not having to do it now, but eventually we will, because we won't be able to lease it forever, so.
To your point, I think we have it on a future agenda item list too, was that a few meetings back when we first saw the street scan data, we just saw the overview. we asked for the detail to come back on a presentation for that, so Bud and Tom, when you guys are ready, because then that'll help answer that question. If you're adding more detail about rate of travel, and then that might change the prioritization based upon what that program is sharing with us, so, yeah. Okay. All right, and Mr. Huxley, you need a vote here.
Oh, yeah, if you could vote the water district engineering is coming from revenue replacement funds, that would be much appreciated.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to vote $145,000 for water district as revenue replacement.
Second. Motion is second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Abstentions? Objections? Motion carries. Great. Thank you. Number 14, policy for waiving building fees for nonprofit organizations.
This came up as a request from Habitat for Humanity to waive the demolition fee for the Gulf Road property. I have a piece in your folders, which is largely an argument for, always a good thing to support local charitable organizations. I think the strongest argument against it is that the town is also a nonprofit organization, and we get few fees, but they do go to help offset the administrative costs. So those are the pros and cons of
The whole idea behind fees, in some towns they call them payment in lieu of taxes, or for nonprofit businesses, churches, veterans clubs, schools contribute to the tax revenue, or contribute to the revenue flow to the town to help offset the cost of services. I think it's a big mistake to even consider waiving fees across the board at this time. Without a cost analysis, how much is this going to cost us? And we just talked about the taxpayers just can't pay anymore, but they have to make up the difference. I'm definitely against this. I mean, they requested Habitat a one-time demolition thing, but this morphed into not only a town-wide and any entity that claims to be nonprofit can apply for a tax fee exemption, not only on demolition costs, but any building costs. I just am appalled that this would be proposed. I mean, I would, they want money for the demolition fee, which is what they asked for, which is probably $50. I mean, we better be better off by donating. Somebody give them $50 and open up and make it across the board, according to our lawyer, to everyone that's entitled to, everyone that can claim entitlement.
I did try to keep the definitions fairly narrow, but it's true. That's the argument against adopting the policy.
Is this a slippery slope
Yes, it
to
is.
Absolutely.
other
Absolutely.
nonprofit fee structures, or would it be license fees, or?
The idea is to have a consistent policy.
Yeah.
So
Joe, I made a list of, right here. The licensing fees, for veterans clubs, churches, schools, other nonprofit groups, and fees consist of water fees, sewer fees, can't read my own writing. Inspectional fees. Now, inspectional fees are particularly vulnerable to exemption because this is how a person like an electrical inspector or plumbing inspector get paid directly by the fee. So if that fee was made non-applicable, they wouldn't have any fees and you wouldn't have any inspectors.
So this isn't just for demolition, this is for building and construction related
Yeah,
permit
you know.
fees, so.
I don't know how it expanded from strictly demolition to building permits. A building permit can run into thousands of dollars, depending on the cost of the building.
I offer this as a template to be
Consider,
changed.
No, but that wasn't what was asked for, Ty.
So we want to get rid of building and construction related permit fees and just leave demolition. That's up to.
Well, it's up to the board.
Yeah, I'm offering you something to work with.
So we have a proposed policy in front of us, is there a motion?
I would move that we simply make the demolition fee for demolition of a building exempt for nonprofit organizations.
So restricting the policy just to demolition.
Yes, because that's what was asked for.
So striking building and construction related permit fees,
Yep.
e.g.,
Yep.
and just leaving demolition for
Yep.
nonprofit entities.
Yeah,
In fact, yesterday,
I'll second that.
we got a vote.
So there's a motion, a second, any discussion? Mr. Estes?
So, Mr. Boyle brings up a good point. If the applicant's not paying the fee, it's gonna fall on the taxpayers one way or the other. Really, the theme is what I'm hearing from people, not only at the public meetings, but in my conversations in the town. People don't care anymore what we want the money for. They're really tired of the continued ask. And frankly, why are we waiving fees for anyone at this point? I mean, it's a nonprofit, I get it, they're doing great work, but they have their own budgets and they do have money. It's not like they can't pay this fee. The Habitat for Humanity can pay the fee. I just don't see why we even, at this point, are gonna waive any fees for anyone.
Is that an amendment to my motion,
I'm
Dan?
not gonna support, I just can't support the policy of waiving fees at this point.
Well, we have to vote on this motion first, because of a motion and a second, and any further discussion?
Oh, he can amend the motion.
Can amend, Dan, is there?
Dan, you want to amend the motion to not waive fees for any nonprofit organizations?
Oh, we can just.
Just kill the first motion.
Yeah, if you can vote no, if that's your intent, if you vote no on the first motion, then make a second motion, I think that would be clearer in the record.
Yeah, I mean, that's my,
I agree with you.
on this. It doesn't mean that other members of the select board agree, I just, yeah, I don't think at
You
this
guys
point
agree
we
with
should.
it?
Well, is there any other
I
discussion?
think when we start this, it's a slippery slope, I really
Yeah.
do. And then we approve this one, and then this one wants this one, and.
Yeah, yeah.
And
And
then
then
this
say,
one
well, you
says,
gave it
well,
to this
why
guy.
didn't you approve mine, but you approved this one, and
Okay.
it I agree with Mr. Roscoe.
All right, so we have a motion.
As much as I agree in theory with it, but I just think it's a bad bad concept right now.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we have a motion to amend the policy as presented.
No, let's just vote down my motion.
Okay?
Well, it's a motion to amend, and then you can vote on the main
Well,
motion,
Dan's got
which is to accept the policy, and if you
He
vote
never
that down.
got his amendment seconded.
There's no amendment. That was just discussion, there's no
We're
amendment.
gonna kill this one, and he's gonna make
Yeah.
it one.
Oh, I thought it was a
Yeah,
second.
I thought you were, I thought you
All, all in favor?
No.
No.
No,
No,
No.
great.
Abstentions?
Dan, you want to make a
Motion
motion?
carries. Okay, so the first, that motion was defeated. Is there a motion to either accept or reject the policy?
Make a motion to reject the policy.
I move to reject the proposed policy for waiving building and related fees for nonprofit organizations.
Is there a second?
So moved.
Motion is second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, that motion carries. Thank you. But Mr. Hutchinson, thank you for the hard work in this, because it's not easy. So I want to recognize the thought process and the diligence you went through.
Yeah, I put together something that, I have no problem with your vote.
Yeah.
Joe, you want to
Just
say
work.
something?
Yep.
It might be appropriate. The Habitat for Humanity. I ran into Caroline Saturday at the funeral thing. And she said there's a major problem with the house over there on Gulf Road. The fact that it is chock full of asbestos. And it's gonna raise the cost considerably of demolishing. But they're gonna go ahead with it. She says that just the test for asbestos is $2,600. So, anyway, they're going ahead with that project. It's going to be a one-level ranch, no basement. They hope to get started on it soon.
Yep, perfect. Thank you, Mr. Will. Next is number 15, town manager update.
Yes, I have completed the preparations for leasing 2 Kittredge House rooms for town hall renovation, and as of today, signed the lease. And we'll be moving 4 offices into the 2 rooms.
4 offices in the kitchen and 2
Yeah,
in the kitchen.
the whole third floor is going into the kitchen.
Is it upstairs or downstairs?
It's upstairs.
The handicap accessible?
It is not.
Ooh.
And meetings will have to be downstairs. There's room available.
Without giving us any detail, did you get a good price?
I believe so. The invitation for bids for the tower fire truck due August 25th yielded one bid for $119,500. And I have given the information to the Water and Fire District to complete the purchasing. We will provide the funds and they will copy us on all the paperwork for our records. The town of Sandusfield has withdrawn from the Berkshire Public Health Alliance run by the Berkshire Regional Planning Commission. This may mean rates for the remaining towns will go up, especially for fiscal year 2024. Recapping earlier appointments, we're in the midst of another spate of hiring. For recording secretary, a part-time position, we had 3 applicants, with 1 person applying through to another job offer. 2 were interviewed, and we offered Jennifer Richards the job. As you know, Jennifer is also the administrative assistant for Savoy. For assistant accountant, a part-time position, we had 9 applicants and interviewed 4, settling on Christine Bialaba for an offer, as you know from the last meeting. For town clerk, for assistant town clerk, a full-time position, we had 27 applicants, though a number believed it was simply a clerical position. 3 withdrew their application after their interview was scheduled, leaving 4 to be interviewed, and we made that appointment recently as well. I'm pleased to announce that both the ADU bylaw and the Conservation Commission's wetlands bylaw were approved by the Attorney General's office.
Great. So now that goes into effect now, right? More or less?
Yes, the ADU bylaw is now in effect as of the date of town meeting, and the Conservation Commission bylaw, wetlands bylaw is now in effect as of the date of the ruling. Based on the town meeting vote, I've advertised for bids for the asbestos abatement and reinstalling the ceiling at Town Hall. The due date is October 6th. Also based on the town meeting vote, I've engaged an appraiser for the Barden property and sent Fuss and O'Neill a letter of award for Division Road engineering. I've begun to prepare fiber ring invitations for bids, first for construction and second to hook it up. I will note that even though both companies who assisted in putting together the scopes of work are on the state contract, the state contract requires soliciting quotes from at least 2 companies for each scope of work. It used to be that if a company was on a state contract, you could hire them without going through any other procurement process. More and more contracts now are required getting quotes because there are more and more companies on the state contracts. So they feel the need for competition is, the need and availability of competition is there. So there's additional work to be done even though they're on state contracts. You may know that the town has had a couple of funding items moved up a notch at the state level. 2 items made it into the general government bond bill, though we must understand that the bond has to be issued in order for the town to receive these funds. This depends on the state's Executive Office of Administration and Finance, which will consider the overall level of state debt before issuing such a bond, which totals $3.1 billion. The items are $250,000 for improvements to the transfer station and $500,000 for renovations and improvements to the highway garage. In addition, the CRA could receive $250,000 as well. Again, this funding is not guaranteed. It will take substantial advocacy to move these items forward.
I.e. make our calls to the reps?
To the Executive Office of Administration and Finance.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, we're gonna have a new state senator, would bet that it's gonna be Paul Martin, who's our current rep in our district. And, he'll have I feel like a great deal of clout in the state house down there.
We,
And, I think he's the guy who we contacted
we worked with him to get these items in the bill.
Yep.
And I have been working with him regarding I had sent a letter to Administration and Finance because I have some slight payments there. And we'll be doing more of that in the coming months.
If we need to sign a group letter or something, whatever we need to do. That's great. What else? Yeah, that's it?
Yeah.
That's it, Tom?
Joe, I got a couple of quick questions. Tom, somebody asked me today, or a couple of days ago, if we could expect any funding from the recently enacted at the federal level, the Inflation Reduction Act. Is there anything in there for cities and towns, or where does the money go? Was all to the state? I didn't have an answer. I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I think first we would be looking at the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, also known as the Bipartisan Infrastructure Bill. And it is still unclear exactly what funds may be coming from that. Those would probably be more direct to cities and towns than the Inflation Reduction Act.
And when was that act that you just spoke of passed?
That was a year ago.
Yeah, okay. You've never heard anything about potential available funds for infrastructure rebuilding, which is basically what we're talking about here, roads and sewers and water?
There are things that have come down from the state level. I have not seen anything yet that is applicable to Dalton specifically.
Do we have to apply for it? Or?
Oh, we will certainly have to apply for it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not quite as easy as the ARPA funds.
All right. Guess that's why nobody knows what's going on.
Thank you, Mr. Hutchinson, for that update. Any questions for our town manager? Okay, number 16, any items not anticipated 48 hours before this evening?
I have none.
Mr. Hutchinson?
I have none.
Oh, you have none, okay. Any remarks to the select board? I thought I had one. I can't recall what that was.
All the Hall of Famers, congratulations.
Yeah, congrats to the Hall of Fame. Oh, thank you. Certainly congratulations to all the Hall of Famers and to the CRA Hall of Fame. But also I want to just give a shout out to our fire department. Everybody else had a hand in it. The concession stand for the youth football was broken into and vandalized and graffiti, etc. But under the leadership of our fire chief and all the firefighters that were there, they jumped in and helped paint and take care of it. And Dalton Police jumped in, and I don't know what security measures are being taken, but I'm sure there is appropriate discussion. But we had a lot of, our community services react without even being asked. So big shout out to those groups for Dalton. If you live in that area, just keep your eyes out on that concession stand because it's a significant hit to that program.
Was it parked by the firehouse?
Sorry?
Is it parked by the firehouse on the side here?
What's that?
Pine Grove.
Pine Grove. The Pine Grove concession stand?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about the mobile thing.
No,
Oh,
the Pine
okay,
Grove
I know,
one,
I see.
Yeah.
It's the one right behind the bathroom.
Yeah.
Right next to the field.
Any other remarks for select board? Okay, hearing none. Announcements. Annual car permits, bag stickers, and recycling only car permits are available for purchase at the transfer station and on the town's website. Town of Dalton currently has the following job opportunities: a highway mechanic, building and grounds assistant, assessor's clerk, and library page. If interested, please visit the town's website or call the town manager's office for more information. There are numerous committees and boards with vacancies. Please see the town website for more information or reach out to the town manager's office. Thank you for making that section smaller for my read.
Sure.
Thank you. Next meeting is scheduled to take place on Monday, September 26, 2022 at 7 p.m. at the Senior Center with option for no participation. And with that, I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye? Okay. Great. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night. Good night, Dalton.